candlelight, carpet runners, and your first bell. You begin in darkness. The hour is so early that the streets outside are silent. Even the milkman's cart has not yet groaned into motion. The house you serve in sleeps still, the curtains drawn tight, but you do not sleep. You rise in your narrow bed in the servants' quarters, where the ceiling slopes and the air smells faintly of soot and starch. The blanket is coarse wool, prickling faintly against your skin, and the mattress dips where years of other servants have lain before you. You are told by rumor that Victorian servants enjoyed long rest, rising when the household did. That is the myth. The reality presses cold against your toes as you lower them to the bare floor. Servants rose before all others, often before dawn itself, to set the machinery of the house in motion. You sit, listen, and the first sounds begin. Somewhere in the corridor, sooty Meg the scullery maid stumbles past with an armful of coal, dropping one lump that clinks against the stair. She mutters at it, and leaves a smudge across her cheek when she wipes her forehead. Measured, the butler, clears his throat once in the shadows as though announcing the official start of the day. He carries a pocket watch he trusts more than his own heartbeat. The first duty waits, to light the downstairs fires. Miniarch 1, lighting the house into life. You take up the small scuttle, its handle thin and biting against your palm. The coal dust smells acrid, sticking to your sleeve. The parlor grate is black and cold, last night's embers sunk to silence. The procedure is steady, never rushed. Daiko, brush away the old ash with the small pan. The bristles creak faintly against iron. Lay twisted paper at the base, folded like patient fans, set kindling above in a careful cross. Dry sticks snap softly as they settle. Place 2 lumps of coal, not more, not less. Mr. Measured insists on economy. Strike the match, shield it with your hand. Breathe gently until the flame takes. The fire coughs once, then grows. The warmth licks the iron grate, faint but promising. By the time you move to the dining room hearth, the first has begun to whisper. A dilemma arrives as you kneel. The hallway lamp is still dark, and the mistress dislikes entering any room without its glass chimney polished. Should you finish this fire before tending the lamp, or leave the grate to chill? Neither is urgent, yet both have weight. You decide quietly the fire comes first, for the mistress rarely enters unlit rooms before breakfast anyway. The fire crackles, the house sighs. Miniarch 2, the bellboard myth. At the far end of the hall hangs the bellboard, a wooden frame lined with brass fittings, each bell tagged with neat script. Library, morning room, study, bedroom. The myth says bells ring rarely, and only when something is truly needed. The reality, the bells ring like a second heartbeat of the house, often in pairs, sometimes in careless repetition. You listen now. The first faint jingle comes, not upstairs but the breakfast room. Mr. Measured nods from his post, pocket watch gleaming. 3 seconds late, he murmurs, as if you were the one who delayed, not the brass spring. You step lightly, counting boards to avoid the squeaking one near the stairwell. Your feet learn the geography of silence. The bellboard still quivers faintly as you pass. Miniarch 3, the myth of servants' silence. There is a belief that servants spoke in constant whispers. Reality is more mundane. You speak when needed, but never when not. In the corridor, sooty Meg mutters again, this time at a stubborn hinge. Her fingers are black, her apron worse, and when she sees you she only shrugs, as if soot itself is her companion. The kitchen smells sharp with cold iron pans. The range is yet unlit, and the damp air clings to your collar. You gather kindling again. Each match flares yellow against the grey. Smoke curls upward, faint at first, then thicker. Your eyes water. You blink slowly, not dramatically. The room grows warmer by inches. You hear Teacup Tom, the youngest footman, polishing cups with exaggerated care. He hums as though the porcelain listens. Tea without shine is treason, he mutters, his private joke. He is not wrong, Mrs. Pinch. The housekeeper will notice. Miniarch 4, the step-by-step of hallway lamps. The lamp waits at its stand, its chimney dulled by smoke. You take it up gently. The glass feels oily, as if it has absorbed years of breath. The procedure repeats each morning. Kepri Masaura. Remove the chimney carefully. Tilt it sideways so soot does not scatter. Wipe inside with a rag dipped in vinegar water. The smell stings faintly, sharp and clean. Polish the outside with a dry cloth until your face, pale in dawn light, blurs faintly in reflection. Trim the wick to even height, like a student's fringe. Reassemble, Add a spoon of oil and strike a flame. The lamp glows, steady now, less smoky. You set it back on the stand. Light joins the fire. The room brightens, though softly. Mrs. Pinch enters, her notebook already in hand. She smells faintly of lavender, water, and ambition. She inspects the lamp with one glance. Acceptable, she says, which in her vocabulary is the closest word to praise. She scribbles in her ledger, ink scratching like a cricket. Mini-arc 5, Breakfast Shadows. The myth insists breakfast for the family is a lavish spread prepared fresh each morning. Reality, much is laid in advance, preserved carefully. Bread baked yesterday, fruit kept under netting, butter chilled in a cool pantry. You step into the pantry now. It is cold enough that your fingers ache. Rows of jars line the shelf, each labeled in Mrs. Pinch's sharp hand. Cheese smells faintly sharp, apples sweet but beginning to soften. You arrange them slowly, as procedure demands. Lay the cloth first, wrinkle-free, bread nearest the head of the table, fruit in the middle, balanced for symmetry, butter dish slightly off-center, but always facing east. Mr. Measured's quiet superstition. A small dilemma. The butter curls badly when sliced cold. You can present it ragged, or warm the knife subtly against the range. You choose the latter. The curls form smoothly, each one like a folded ribbon. Outside, a bell tinkles again. Morning room this time. Teacup Tom looks at you with mild panic. His cups still line the shelf, half polished. You nod toward the bell. He gulps and runs. The myth of silence fails again. You hear him muttering, "Please let it be a note, not a tray. Please let it be." The corridor swallows his voice. Mini-arc 6, the first breath of the house. By now the house itself is waking. Upstairs floorboards creak faintly as the family stirs. A door opens with a sigh. The bellboard flickers again. Another demand waiting. You pause at the base of the stair. The carpet runner muffles all sound, its pattern repeating in dizzying flowers. The railing smells faintly of polish, beeswax and turpentine blending into something sharp. You keep your hand off it anyway, lest you smudge what someone else spent an hour shining. Mr. Measured checks his watch. 4 minutes until the post, he remarks. Not to you but to the air. He believes the house obeys his clock more than the sun. Mrs. Pinch makes another note, ink blotted just slightly at the corner. Sooty Meg wipes her forehead, leaving another black streak. Teacup Tom returns, breathless, one cup clinking against another like timid bells. The house is no longer asleep, it is breathing. You walk slowly back toward the servants' hall. The fire whispers behind you. The lamp glows softly. The butter curls patiently on its dip. The bellboard quivers with the faint afterring of brass. The day has only begun, but the rhythm has already settled. Fire, lamp, bell, step, polish, note. The house stretches into wakefulness, and you drift with it, neither rushed nor delayed. The fire crackles softly as the morning grows lighter. The housekeeper's ledger and the butler's gospel. You sit in the servants' hall, a room that is neither grand nor neglected. The walls are plain plaster painted in a color once white but now the shade of bread left too long on the table. The table itself is long, scrubbed daily until the wood fibers rise and splinter faintly under your fingertips. A single clock ticks on the wall, but no one trusts it as much as Measured's pocket watch. The myth says the master of the house controls everything, every coin, every key, every crumb. The reality is simpler, quieter, more procedural. Much of the house belongs to Mrs. Pinch and Mr. Measured. She carries the ledger, he carries the key. Between the two of them, the household beats like a heart, quietly, steadily, with very little attention from the family above. Mini-arc 1, Mrs. Pinch's ledger. Mrs. Pinch enters now, skirts brushing faintly against the floor. Her notebook is already open, as though she has been writing in her sleep. The smell of her ink, iron gall, sharp and metallic, fills the small space when she sits. She writes quickly, almost impatiently, her pen scratching like a beetle against dry bark. She begins her morning inspection. First, the pantry lists flour, sugar, suet, soap. She reads each aloud, her voice clipped but never raised. 4 pounds of flour, 6 loaves baked, suet jar opened, 1/4 remaining. She pauses only to dip her pen again, the ink blotting slightly on the page. The ledger itself smells faintly of starch and lavender, the latter from the pressed sprig she keeps between the first pages. It is her superstition, though she would never call it that. The myth says housekeepers bark orders. The reality, Mrs. Pinch murmurs them like weather report. Quiet, inevitable, always written down. A small dilemma falls to you. A delivery of tea yesterday seemed lighter than it should have been. Do you mention it now, risk her displeasure, or allow the ink to record a fiction? You choose honesty quietly. Miss Pinch narrows her eyes, notes suspiciously light in her ledger, and nods once. That nod is enough. Miniac 2, Mr. Measured's Gospel. The door creaks. Mr. Measured enters, watch already in hand. He clears his throat softly as though declaring the service begun. His keys jingle faintly at his side, heavy enough to anchor him even when the air itself seems thin. He does not open a book. His book is the day itself. 14 minutes until the post, he remarks to no one in particular. 7 until the mistress descends. 3 until the study bell rings. If yesterday holds true, his voice is low but his tone leaves no space for questioning. For him time itself is a set of commandments. The butler's gospel of quiet timekeeping. Begin all tasks before they are noted. Open the door before a hand reaches the knob. Never allow the mantel clock to strike unanswered. If silence is broken, mend it with stillness. 3 seconds of delay are equal to 3 hours of disgrace. Teacup Tom listens with wide eyes, polishing a silver spoon as though the spoon itself might remember these commandments. Sooty Meg only sighs and smudges more coal across her cheek. You feel the weight of Mr. Measured's gaze. He looks not at you but through you, as if measuring whether you align with the ticking of his watch. Miniac 3, the myth of authority. The myth insists the master of the house gives constant orders. The reality, he barely stirs the machinery at all. His words fall occasionally, like stones dropped in a river, but the current is already flowing. Mrs. Pinch directs the maids with quiet ink strokes. Mr. Measured guides the footman with subtle throat clearing and pocket watch taps. The family expects breakfast to arrive at 9. It arrives at 9 because these two ensure it does, not because the master asked. You are given a task now. Prepare the sideboard in the dining room. You carry polished silver on a tray. Each piece reflects the dim gaslight, blurred and yellow. You set them down in order, knives aligned west to east, spoons nested like obedient geese, forks resting with their backs upward. A small dilemma. One fork has a bent tine. Do you hide it beneath the cloth knowing it will never be used, or present it and risk Pinch's sharp note in her ledger? You hide it quietly. Some rules, unwritten, live between the lines. Miniac 4, the rules of deliveries. A knock sounds at the service entrance. The grocer's boy appears, boots muddy, cap tilted. He smells faintly of onions and He hands over a crate smaller than expected. Mrs. Pinch inspects each item with surgical calm. Sugar, flour, soap. She frowns at the tea, lighter than promised again. She looks to you, expression unreadable. Here lies a procedure, unchanging. Note each shortfall in ink. Inform Mr. Measured. Mr. Measured clears his throat, notes the time, and records the boy's name in his memory. Deliveries continue, but the boy will not forget the gaze of the butler. The myth says all was honest. Reality, every ounce of flour weighed, every spoon of tea measured, every absence written down as if it were crime. Miniac 5, the housekeeper's quiet commandments. Mrs. Pinch closes her ledger with a sharp snap. She announces the day's priorities, not loudly but firmly. Housekeeper's quiet rules for servants. Coal dust must never reach the stair carpets. Tea leaves must be saved for polishing glass. Candles are to be trimmed by ½ an inch each morning, no more, no less. Aprons must be laundered twice weekly, even when spotless. Notes to the mistress must never contain blotted ink. No servant may leave without signing the hall book. Her voice does not rise. Her words feel less like instructions and more like natural law. You do not question gravity, nor do you question Mrs. Pinch. Teacup Tom mutters, soap that smells like ambition after her exit. Sooty Meg snorts. You nearly smile but keep it inward. Humor too is rationed here. Miniac 6, a quiet conflict. Later in the pantry you overhear Mr. Measured and Mrs. Pinch speaking softly. He insists that the mistress expects the dining room set earlier. She replies that the maids are still cleaning the upper halls, and her ledger takes precedence. Their words are not sharp, they are careful, measured, like chess pieces moved deliberately. You feel the tension in the silence that follows, but neither raises their voice. In the end Mrs. Pinch writes a note in her ledger, dining room adjusted, and Mr. Measured clears his throat twice, which is his way of conceding. The myth says authority is absolute. The reality is a balance, a seesaw of ink and time, ledger and watch. Miniac 7, the gospel of the watch. At precisely 9, the mistress descends. Her shoes click faintly on the stair, the rhythm muffled by the carpet runner. Mr. Measured has already positioned himself near the door, watch closed in his palm. He opens it only when the clock strikes. The sound of both together is his gospel fulfilled, clock and watch in harmony. You watch him bow not deeply, but with mathematical precision. 3 seconds of angle, no. The mistress glides past without a glance. For Mr. Measured, that absence of correction is triumph. You stand by, hands folded, unseen but necessary. The family believes the house simply runs. In truth, it runs because the ledger and the watch say it must. The day continues with its quiet balances. Mrs. Pinch writes, page after page, her ink sharp as footsteps. Mr. Measured listens, every tick of his watch a silent command. Between them the household turns like a clock's gear. You are one of the smaller cogs perhaps, but without you the gear would slip. The myth of control fades, the reality settles. The house is a machine of ink and keys, of ledgers and gospel time. You drift with it, calm, unhurried, carried by its rhythm. The ink dries, the watch ticks, and the hall exhales into silence. Kitchen heat, bread, dripping and soap that smelled like ambition. You step into the kitchen, where the air is thick even before the range is fully awake. The walls are stone, the ceiling low, and the smell is a mixture of flour dust, damp coal and yesterday's onions. The myth says Victorian kitchens produced endless feasts of roast beef and puddings as though by magic. The reality, plain staples, careful rationing, and a constant undercurrent of smoke. Sooty Meg is already there, hair escaping her cap, fingers black from the coal scuttle. She mutters at the oven door which squeaks no matter how much grease she applies. Her muttering is part of the kitchen's soundscape, like the faint drip of a leaking tap, or the shuffle of feet across the flagstones. On the other side of the room, Teacup Tom polishes cups again. The porcelain gleams faintly in the dim light, though Tom insists on a shine so clear it might frighten his reflection. He polishes each rim with a sigh as though the cup had insulted him personally. Mr. Measured the butler appears briefly at the doorway. He clears his throat once, notes the time and departs. He does not need to say anything. The range should already be lit, and the bread already rising. His gospel is time, and the kitchen must obey it. Mini-Arc 1, bread in the morning. The first task is bread, not the feasts of legend, but loaves that must feed both table and hall. The smell of yeast clings faintly to the air, sour yet warm. The procedure is plain, though each step feels ritualistic. Grind flour into dust finer than chalk. Your hands smell of grain when you are done. Add water, not too warm, not too cool. The bowl creaks as you stir. Sprinkle salt like sand across the surface. Knead with palms until the dough springs back softly. The rhythm is calming. Fold after leave the dough beneath a cloth that smells faintly of last week's starch. The myth says bread was endless. The reality, one loaf stretched thinly, a heel here, a slice there, crust saved for puddings, nothing wasted. A small dilemma comes as you knead. The flour feels slightly damp. If you use it, the loaves may bake heavy. If you set it aside, Mrs. Pinch will mark it in her ledger as waste. You choose to knead anyway, hoping the oven's heat will forgive the dampness. Sooty Meg snort. Bread that sweats before the oven, bad omen, she mutters, then shoulders another coal bucket toward the range. Mini-Arc 2, soap that smelled like ambition. Near the scullery sink sits a slab of yellow-brown soap. It smells harsh, something between tallow and ambition itself. The myth says kitchen smelled of roasted meats and sugared cakes. The reality, soap, lye and endless scouring. You scrub a copper pot. The water is cold enough to sting your wrists. The soap foams reluctantly, bubbles clinging to the rim. The copper shines faintly but only after long effort. You rinse, and the metal smells clean, metallic, as though it resists being tamed. The procedure never changes. That, wet cloth, rub soap, apply to pan, scrub in circles, never straight lines. Rinse with cold water that shocks the skin. Dry with a cloth already damp from earlier scrubbing. Place on shelf, where Mrs. Pinch's eyes will pass judgment. Teacup Tom passes behind you carrying cups with reverence. He mutters, a cup is easier than a pot, always will be. His voice is low, but the soap seems to agree. It slides away from the cloth and back into the dishwater with a plop. Mini-Arc 3, the dripping jar. On the shelf sits a jar filled with fat, pale and solid in the cool morning. This is dripping, the house's quiet economy. The myth says, every dinner ended in butter and cream. The reality, dripping spread thin on bread,
reused until its flavor faded to faint smoke. Mrs. Pinch checks the jar once each morning. She dips in her spoon, levels the surface, and makes a note in her ledger. She says nothing, but the pen scratches. Today the jar is low. You must choose. Stretch it by adding yesterday's cooled fat from the range, or serve it pure and risk running short tomorrow. A small dilemma, but dilemmas here are always small. You choose to stretch it. The fat hisses as it meets the jar, then settles. Rat-face Pete, the rat catcher, appears at the door with a grin, proudly holding up a sprung trap. One less thief for your dripping, he says cheerfully. He smells faintly of hay and pipe smoke. Sooty Meg rolls her eyes, mutters something about vermin catching vermin, and goes back to the coal. Miniarch 4, the myth of grand kitchens. Stories claim kitchens were vast, echoing halls of plenty. You look around now, low ceiling, damp corners, range smoking like a tired beast. Pans hang from hooks, each clattering faintly when touched. The scullery drain smells faintly of mildew. This is not grandeur, this is labor. The range itself demands constant care. Stoke with coal, listening for the hollow thud that means enough. Adjust the vent, letting smoke find its way out. Test the oven's heat with a hand too hot to hold, too cool to bake. Lay pans carefully, each one balanced so it will not tip. Stand back, cough once, then begin again with the next grate. Sooty Meg emerges from behind the oven, face streaked black. She mutters, "This stove eats coal like a lord eats pheasant." Then she shovels more in. Teacup Tom chuckles, at least the stove doesn't ask for polished spoons. The kitchen breathes around you, smoky, damp, relentless. Miniarch 5, a list of kitchen rules. Mrs. Pinch posts her rules on the pantry door, each written in her sharp hand. They are not loud rules, but quiet, inevitable ones. Rules of the kitchen: never leave flour open to the damp, save crusts, puddings require patience, dripping belongs to the ledger, not to the tongue, pots shine before cups, do not argue with the oven, a servant's sigh belongs in the scullery, not the hall. You read them as you pass, each one sinking like a stone into water. The kitchen follows these rules, not because they are kind, but because they are familiar.
Miniarch 6. A small trouble with the bread. The dough rises, but sluggishly. You press a finger into it, and the indent remains too long. Damp flour betrayed you. Sooty Meg mutters again. Told you, sweating dough. She shrugs as though it is your problem alone. You face a choice. Bake it anyway, or knead it again with a pinch of dry flour stolen from tomorrow's measure. You decide to knead again. The bowl groans under your effort, but the dough begins to spring back more eagerly. Later, when the loaves emerge, their crusts are rough, but serviceable. Bread does not need to be perfect, only present. The kitchen settles into its rhythm. Soap clings faintly to your hands, coal dust to your sleeves, yeast to the air itself. Teacup Tom hums, polishing the last cup until it gleams. Rat-face Pete vanishes again, muttering about traps. Mrs. Pinch closes her ledger with a snap. The myth of plenty dissolves. The reality of labor remains, plain but steady. You feel the weight of bread in your hands, the smell of soap in your nose, the sting of cold water at your wrists. And yet the house breathes easier for it. The range hums, the bread cools, and the kitchen exhales into warmth. Bells, boards, and footsteps like soft arithmetic. You stand in the servants' corridor, where the bellboard hangs like a silent overseer. It is a wooden frame with brass fittings, each bell connected to a wire that runs unseen through walls and ceilings. Each one bears a neat label in handwriting sharper than a pin. Study, morning room, breakfast room, bedroom east, nursery. The myth insists these bells rang rarely, only in emergencies or grand occasions. The reality: the bells ring like the quiet arithmetic of the house, summoning you in sequences of twos, threes, and sometimes in discordant unison. The brass fittings catch faint light from a nearby lamp. The air smells faintly of oil and dust, the scent of a hallway that waits but never truly rests. You brush your sleeve against the wall and feel its chalky texture, plaster long since dried and flaking. Mr. Measured hovers nearby, watch already in hand. He clears his throat once. The study bell in 2 minutes, he remarks, not as a guest but as if time itself has confessed its secrets to him. Sooty Meg rolls her eyes, black streak across her cheek as usual. Teacup Tom, polishing a glass at the sideboard, mutters, The bell's the true master, not the man. Mini Arc 1. The first ring. The morning morn bell rings. A sharp little jingle that quivers long after the pull is released upstairs. You step forward, careful not to rush. Mr. Measured's throat clears again, softer this time. His way of saying, "Steady now." The procedure is simple, but exact. Time at which bell rings. Never mistake the tone. Acknowledge with a slight nod, as though the bell could see. The walk toward the destination. Neither rushing nor dawdling. The pause at the door, knock softly 3 times. Wait 1 breath, then enter with hands visible. The myth says servants ran frantically. The reality, you move like an equation solved step by step. Inside the morning room, the mistress asks for nothing dramatic, only the curtains drawn wider. You obey silently, the fabric heavy in your hands, smelling faintly of dust and lavender. Light spills in, not golden but pale, the color of milk. Mini Arc 2. When 2 bells clash. No sooner have you left than another bell rings. At the same moment, the breakfast room bell trembles. The wires quiver on the board, the brass tongues tapping faintly as if bickering. Here lies the dilemma. Answer which first. If you go to the study, the master may grow impatient. If you go to the breakfast room, the mistress may notice the delay. Neither is urgent, yet both matter. Mr. Measured clears his throat, long and deliberate. Study precedes bread, he intones. A rule he has carried for years. You nod, accept his arithmetic, and step toward the study. Teacup Tom scurries toward the breakfast room, muttering about spoons being more forgiving than books. You walk softly, counting steps. 7 to the stair, 9 more to the landing, 12 to the study door. The carpet muffles everything, but your sandals still whisper. Soft arithmetic indeed. Mini Arc 3. The myth of lounging servants. Upstairs corridors gleam faintly with morning light. The myth insists servants lounged until summoned, perhaps drowsing on benches or sipping tea. The reality, every pause was filled with polish, fold or dust. Even waiting was active. You pass a side table. Its edge bears a faint smudge. You pull out a cloth, wipe once, twice, until the wood smells faintly of beeswax again. The task is minor, but each smudge avoided prevents Mrs. Pinch's ledger from gaining another frown. Sooty Meg passes carrying kindling for the guest room fire. Her steps are heavier than yours, boots leaving faint prints on the carpet. She mutters at the ash clinging to her sleeve, then disappears into the room. You knock at the study, wait, then enter. The master requires only that the grate be checked. You crouch, brush ash, set kindling in quiet layers. The smell of smoke clings to your hands even after you wipe. Mini Arc 4. The arithmetic of footsteps. Returning to the servants' corridor, you find Teacup Tom standing beneath the bellboard, eyes wide. 2 at once again, he says, pointing to the trembling brass. Library and nursery. Mr. Measured clears his throat twice. That means library first. Tom nods, though his sigh suggests he would rather face the nursery's soft chaos than the library's sharp silence. You walk the long corridor again. The sound of your footsteps becomes a pattern, soft against the carpet, louder where stone peeks through. You count without meaning to 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2, 3. Pause. The rhythm soothes you. At the library the request is simple. Fetch a book from a high shelf. You climb the small ladder, the wood creaking softly under your weight. The smell of old leather surrounds you, dry and faintly musty. You place the book gently in the master's hand, bow and leave. Meanwhile Tom faces the nursery bell. Later he confesses, only wanted the curtains tied tighter. All that panic for strip. He shakes his head, polishing another cup as penance. Mini Arc 5. Rules of the bellboard. Mrs. Pinch posts her rules beneath the bellboard, written in ink darker than soot. Rules for answering bells. Do not carry coal through the main hall unless summoned. Hours. The study outranks the breakfast room. Hour. The mistress outranks the master in matters of tea. Bells rung in anger must be answered with silence. Then service. Hours. No servant may allow a bell to ring more than thrice. The myth says servants invented rules to protect themselves. The reality, rules were written above you like constellations, fixed and unchanging. Teacup Tom reads them aloud now, exaggerating. The mistress outranks the master in matters of tea. Even the stars know it. Sooty Meg smirks, black streaked face brightening for a moment. Mini Arc 6. A false alarm. Late morning brings a peculiar sound. The east bedroom bell jangles wildly, wires rattling against each other. You hurry, but when you knock and enter, the room is empty. The maid insists no one has pulled the cord. A false alarm. The myth says every bell had meaning. The reality, wires stretched, rusted, and twitched when the house settled in the wind. You report this to Mr. Measured. He clears his throat, taps his watch, and makes a note in his private book. The house rings for itself, he says softly, not entirely joking. Rat-face Pete, passing with a trap under his arm, mutters, even the walls want attention. Mini-arc 7, the day's quiet balance. By noon the bells have rung 23 times, each answered with the same ritual. Knock, breath, enter, bow, serve. Each step is arithmetic, solved slowly, without drama. You think of the myth that bells were the tyrant of the house. The reality, bells are the background music, steady as rain on a roof. They tell you not of crisis, but of rhythm. The board now hangs still. Its brass tongues rest quietly, each one like a closed eye. The air smells faintly of polished wood, the cloth in your pocket damp with wax. Mr. Measured snaps his watch. Lunch, he says, as though the bells themselves have confirmed it. You sit again in the servants' hall. The bread tastes plain, the cheese sharper, the butter thin on its dish. Teacup Tom sighs over a cup. Sooty Meg mutters at a coal streak on her sleeve. Rat-face Pete boasts of a rat that looked me in the eye. Mrs. Pinch writes one more line in her ledger. The bells are quiet for now, but you know they will jingle again, their voices never fully at rest. The myth of silence dissolves. The reality of arithmetic footsteps remains. The board hangs still, the lamps hum softly, and the corridor exhales into calm. Laundry day, steam ghosts, and the iron that whispers. You step into the laundry room, and at once the air changes. It is thick, wet and heavy. The ceiling drips with condensation, and the floor tiles gleam dark with spilled water. The myth says Victorian laundry was simple. Maids dropped linen into basins, scrubbed once or twice, and out came crisp white sheets. The reality surrounds you, steam that fogs your eyelashes, soap flakes that cling to your sleeves, and work that never seems to end. A mangle stands in the corner, its great wooden rollers creaking like tired knees. Beside it, tubs of boiling water bubble, heated by a stove that sweats coal smoke and steam in equal measure. The smell is sharp. Lye soap, hot cloth, damp stone. Mrs. Pinch, housekeeper, stands in the doorway. Her notebook is dry, but her gaze is wet with steam. She writes a line, licks her pencil, and writes another. Collars must not yellow, aprons must not grey, sheets must smell of starch, not smoke. Her rules are ink before they are fabric. Mini-arc 1, the myth of pristine ease. The mistress upstairs believes linen is always white, as if whiteness is the cloth's natural state. That is the myth. The reality, bluing bags, starch, endless boiling, and hands rubbed raw. Sooty Meg carries a basket of soiled shirts to the first tub. She mutters at the weight. Her cheeks streak darker as the steam catches coal dust and paints her anew. Teacup Tom, passing through with a jug of clean water, smirks. You'll wash the black off your own face if you're not careful. Meg scowls, dips a sleeve, and splashes his shoe on purpose. The procedure begins. The steps are mechanical, yet they feel ceremonial. Soak in boiling water with soap flakes that sting your nose. Scrub against the washboard, the ridges rasping like a rasp on stone. Rinse in cooler water, hands red and numb. Dip into blue solution, a tiny bag swirled until water turns faint sky. A ring with aching wrists, water running down your elbows. Each piece passes from hand to hand, like pilgrims in a procession. Mini-arc 2, the steam ghosts. As more linen drops into tubs, the air grows foggy, shapes blur. Teacup Tom's head appears like a ghost behind steam, his cap beaded with droplets. The mangle moans as Sooty Meg turns its wheel, her arms tense, steam rising from her collar. The myth says laundry days were cheerful, with songs and laughter. The reality, voices muffled by steam, songs broken by coughs. You wipe your forehead and the cloth comes away wet. You breathe shallow because deep breaths taste of soap and heat. Mrs. Pinch enters again, ink blotting faintly on her page from damp air. Collars, she reminds, as if collars matter more than lungs. She writes another line, her handwriting curling slightly as the page buckles with humidity. Mini-arc 3, the iron that whispers. Once washed and dried, the real test begins. Irons here are solid metal, heavy,
heated on the stove until they sizzle when touched with spit. The myth says ironing is simple. Smooth the cloth, glide and done. The reality: irons too hot scorch linen. Irons too cool leave wrinkles, and every movement demands judgment. The procedure repeated endlessly. Test the iron against a scrap cloth. Unwrap the handle in rag, for wood alone grows too hot. Press slowly, not gliding but lifting. Setting, lifting again. Listen to the faint hiss. The whisper that means steam trapped in cloth is fleeing. Replace iron often. Rotate with another waiting on the stove. You press a shirt front. The iron whispers against it, leaving behind a sheen. You adjust your grip. The cloth smells faintly of starch, sharp and clean. Like ambition in fabric form. A dilemma arises. One iron overheats, leaving a faint brown mark on the rag. If you risk it on a collar, the scorch will show. If you set it aside, Mrs. Pinch may ask why production slows. You choose caution, cooling the iron quietly on the stone floor. Maniac 4. The myth of gentle hands. The mistress upstairs believes maids' hands are soft, suited to folding napkins or turning pages. That is the myth. The reality: cracked knuckles, red skin, soap burns. You look at your fingers now. They are pale from soaking, nails rimmed with soap. Sooty Meg flexes her hands, muttering, skin feels like old bark. Teacup Tom grins, polishing yet another cup in mock sympathy. Rat-face Pete pops his head in, trap under his arm, cheerfully declaring, at least rats don't demand starch. The steam swallows him before anyone answers. Maniac 5. Rules of the laundry. Mrs. Pinch has pinned a list to the laundry wall, written in her neatest script. The paper is wrinkled with damp, but the ink remains sharp. Rules of laundry day: soap must be shaved, never chunked, collars boiled separately, starch double, bluing bag dipped 3 times not 4, knuckle, mangled cloth folded first, shaken second, irons exchanged every 7 minutes. No garment returns upstairs damp. Complaints belong in the steam, not the ledger. The rules sound like commandment. Each is followed not for joy but because disobedience means blot in the ledger. Maniac 6. A small trouble with the sheets. One sheet emerges with a faint tear near the hem. You spot it before the mangle swallows it. The dilemma: mend it invisibly, or present it honestly and risk Miss Pinch's sharp gaze. You choose to mend. Needle thread, small stitches. The cloth resists, damp and thick, but the tear vanishes under your care. Mrs. Pinch passes later, inspects with one raised brow. She writes nothing. Silence, in her ledgered world, is praise. Maniac 7. Folding as ritual. By afternoon, the piles of linen must be folded. The myth says folding is simple. The reality: folding is choreography. Step by step, like cloth on table, edges aligned, smooth with damp palm, pushing wrinkles out like air bubbles. Fold once, then again, corners perfectly matched. Uncle, press gently with palm, leaving faint handprint. I stack evenly, heaviest at bottom, lightest at top. Teacup Tom tries once, his fold uneven. Sooty Meg snorts, straightens it with one tug. Even ghosts fold better, she mutters. He bows mockingly, then continues polishing his eternal cups. The steam thins as fires cool. Irons rest silent on the stove, their whispers spent. Piles of linen stand like pale monuments, stacked neatly against the wall. The room smells of starch and faint lavender from the blue rinse. Your hands ache, but the cloth is smooth, white and waiting. The myth of pristine ease is gone. The reality remains: water, soap, steam and silence. You feel tired, but the house feels lighter. Its linen ghosts pressed into order. The mangle quiets, the irons cool, and the laundry exhales into stillness. Upstairs, downstairs, and the geography of invisible lines. You stand at the base of the great staircase, the one the family glides upon as though it were a stair. The myth says servants and family mingled freely, one household under one roof. The reality: invisible lines, divided every step, every hallway, every stair tread. You exist within these lines, moving along them like a shadow. The carpet runner stretches upward, red worn thin by countless feet. Brass rods hold it in place, each one polished until it gleams faintly even in the dim gaslight. The smell is faint, beeswax and wool. The sound is silence, for your steps must not be heard. Mr. Measured Butler appears behind you. He clears his throat softly. 7 steps, he murmurs. It is his rule. Never closer than 7 steps to a member of the family unless directly addressed. He checks his watch, nods, and disappears down the servants' passage. Miniarch 1. The myth of easy passage. The myth imagines servants moving freely through the house, welcomed everywhere. The reality is caution. Step aside in corridors, flatten against walls, wait at landings until the family passes. Even your gaze is trained. Eyes down, hands visible. Step silent. You ascend the back stairs first. They are narrow, steep, plain wood without polish. The banister is smooth where countless hands have gripped it. You pass quickly, the boards groaning faintly. These stairs belong to you. The grand staircase, carpeted and polished, belongs to them. Sooty Meg passes carrying kindling, muttering at every step. Stairs steeper than mountains, she says. Her apron smudges the banister with coal dust, and she sighs when she notices. She rubs it half-heartedly with her sleeve. Miniarch 2. Crossing paths. At the landing you pause. A door opens above. The mistress descending. You count the steps. 1, 2, 3. You flatten against the wall. Eyes lowered. Breath slowed. Her silk skirt brushes faintly against the carpet runner, whispering as it passes. The smell of lavender water follows her. She does not see you, and that is the point. Teacup Tom appears at the bottom of the stairs, tray in hand, cups rattling softly. He freezes, counts aloud under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then begins to climb only after the mistress has turned the corner. He winks at you as he passes, though his tray wobbles dangerously. The myth says encounters were friendly exchanges. The reality, encounters were rituals of invisibility. Miniarch 3. The geography of rooms. You step into the upstairs hall. Its carpet is thicker, its air warmer. Portraits stare from the walls. Stern men, pale women, dogs with proud collars. Their painted eyes remind you of Mrs. Pinch's ledger, always watching, always judging. The invisible lines run here too. You do not enter the drawing room unless you do not step beyond the mistress's boudoir threshold without a knock. You move quickly past the library, where silence is deeper than any corridor. Ratface Pete passes, surprisingly, with a small trap hidden under his coat. He grins. Rats don't know lines, they cross where they please. Then he vanishes down the servant stair with his prize. Miniarch 4. The rules of movement. Mr. Measured once recited them, his voice flat as a sermon. Rules for servants' movement in the house. Yield staircases, landings and corridors at once. The road directly into family eyes unless spoken to. Prefer back stairs over front. Always. The Teacup Tom recites them now, mocking gently, as he polishes yet another cup in the corner. 7 steps, no squeaks, no squeals, no smudges. Sooty Meg rolls her eyes. Tell that to the stair. Miniarch 5. A gentle dilemma. As you move through the upper hall, a small dilemma appears. The young master glances up from his book as you pass. He smiles faintly, perhaps kindly, perhaps absent-mindedly. The rule says eyes down, hands visible, but courtesy suggests a smile in return. You hesitate. To smile risks stepping outside your invisible lines. To ignore risks appearing rude. In the end you choose the banister. You let your gaze rest upon the polished wood, admiring its grain, as though the wood itself required attention. The young master returns to his book. The dilemma dissolves. Miniarch 6. Myth versus reality of belonging. Stories sometimes insist servants belong to the family, loved as if kin. Reality. You belong to the house. The mistress may nod once in years. The master may pass you without notice. Belonging is not love, but usefulness. You think of this as you carry fresh linen into a guest room. The sheets are crisp, faintly scented of starch and blue. You smooth them across the bed, fold corners into neat triangles, press your hand flat against the cloth. The bed now looks untouched, though your fingerprints remain beneath the folds. Mrs. Pinch inspects later, nods once, writes nothing. In her world, silence is approval. Miniarch 7. Invisible at dinner. Evening brings another test of invisibility. The dinner serving. You move among chairs, pouring wine, refilling plates. The myth says servants joined in laughter. Part of the feast. The reality. You exist only as arms. Trays.
The silver gleams faintly in lamplight. The sound of knives and forks is louder than voices. You place a dish before the master, bow and step back exactly 7 steps. Mr. Measured nods slightly, his watch ticking in his pocket. Teacup Tom nearly rattles a spoon, but catches it just in time. His relief shows in the smallest smile. Sooty Meg is not here, she is below shoveling coal to keep ovens breathing. You pass unseen, yet the feast unfolds because of you. When the family retires, you retreat down the back stairs. The wood creaks. Your hands slide along the smooth rail. Your breath echoes softly in the narrow space. The invisible lines dissolve in darkness, though they will return with dawn. The myth of freedom fades. The reality of rules remains, invisible but firm. You belong not to people but to spaces, steps and silence. The carpet rests. The stairs groan, and the house exhales into stillness. The dinner machine, silver, sauce and silence. You enter the dining room before the lamps are lit. When the long table is only a shape in dim light, the myth says grand Victorian dinners appeared with ease, food flowing like rivers, silver gleaming without effort. The reality waits in silence, trays to polish, plates to align, knives to place in measured order. The dinner machine does not roar, it hums, quietly through you. The carpet here is thicker, muffling your steps. The table stretches almost endlessly, its polished surface reflecting faint light. You can smell beeswax polish, sharp and clean, clinging to the wood. On a sideboard, silver dishes sit like silent soldiers, waiting to be summoned. Mr. Measured butler inspects the room. He clears his throat once, a signal that the preparations must begin. His watch ticks faintly in his pocket, marking each moment as law. Miniarch 1, silver polished by breath. The first duty, polish the silver. The myth says it gleamed forever, naturally bright. The reality, each fork, knife and spoon must be touched, rubbed and breathed upon until no smudge remains. You take a cloth, soft but faintly damp with powder. You rub slowly, turning each piece in the low light. You breathe upon the spoon, misting it faintly, then polish again until your reflection blurs. The steps repeat, cloth in hand. Teacup Tom hums beside you, polishing as though the spoons are his private gallery. He mutters, tea without shine is treason, spoons without shine are sin. He nearly smiles at his own joke, but continues polishing with devotion. Miniarch 2, the laying of the table. Once silver gleams, the table must be dressed. The myth imagines spontaneity, but each placement is measured like arithmetic. Step by step, cloth laid flat, edges aligned, smoothed with palm. Knives placed to the right, blades inward, lined like soldiers. Forks to the left, tines upward, spacing exact. Glasses at the top right, aligned in diagonal rows. Plates centered, with folded napkins like pale sails. Mr. Measured circles, watch in hand. Forks east to west, he murmurs, as if geography itself depends upon cutlery. You adjust one fork a fraction. His throat clears softly in approval. Sooty Meg appears with a tray of warmed plates, muttering at their weight. A streak of black marks one rim. She wipes it with her sleeve, sighs and continues. She prefers coal, but dinner demands porcelain too. Miniarch 3, the myth of overflowing dishes. Stories tell of tables bending under mountains of food. The reality, measured courses carefully portioned, each one rehearsed. Dishes arrive in order, never at once. The kitchen below groans with labor. Sauces stirred, geese roasted, pudding steamed. Upstairs you prepare for sequence, not chaos. Each course will glide into place as though effortless, though effort weighs every step. You carry a tureen of soup. The porcelain is hot, warming your palms. The lid clinks faintly as you set it upon the sideboard. The smell rises, broth, faintly of onion and marrow. Not feast but begin. A dilemma appears. The tureen handle wobbles slightly. If you carry it too far it may tip. If you replace it, the timing falters. You choose to steady it with both hands. Walk slowly, step evenly. The tureen obeys. Miniarch 4, rules of service. Measured gathers the footmen, his voice low but stern. He recites the rules as if scripture, rules of dinner service. Plates carried with 2 hands, never one. Step on carpet edge, not center. Pour wine without sound. Stop before rim. Retreat 7 steps, bow 1. Silence is service. Words are waste. If a guest speaks, answer softly, never more than needed. Never turn your back upon the mistress while serving. You carry these rules like invisible weights. Every gesture is bound by them. Teacup Tom whispers, pour without sound, as if wine itself knows better. He smirks, but when Mr. Measured clears his throat, he straightens, serious again. Mini-Arc 5, the first course. The family gathers. The mistress sits at the head, her gown rustling faintly. The master settles heavily into his chair, coughing one. The young master glances about, half curious, half bored. You enter with the soup. The tureen steams, the ladle heavy. You pour into bowls, steady, wrist firm, never spilling. The sound is faint, almost inaudible. The broth smells warm, filling, but you taste none of it. The myth says servants shared in feasts. The reality, servants ate later, plain bread and dripping, long after silver was cleared. Sooty Meg lurks at the doorway, coal smudge dark on her cheek. She carries away empty plates without a word, eyes low. Mini-Arc 6, the parade of dishes. One by one the courses arrive. Fish, sauce faint with anchovy. Roast, juices steaming. Vegetables boiled soft, potatoes mashed smooth. Each dish passes from kitchen to table like actors across a stage. Your arms ache, but you step evenly. The carpet muffles sound. The silver gleams under lamplight, reflecting hands. Wine, fire. The guests murmur softly, but knives and forks are louder. Teacup Tom nearly rattles a spoon while pouring wine. He steadies, cheeks flushed. Later he whispers, saved by silence. A dilemma arrives. The fish sauce is thin. Do you thicken it with hurried flour, risk lumps, or serve it as is? The cook below chooses speed. You serve it without question. The guests sip, nod faintly. No complaint raised. Silence is 6. Mini-Arc 7. The myth of servants at ease. Outsiders imagine servants leaning against walls, resting between courses. Reality, trays carried, wine poured, plates exchanged, steps counted. No rest, only rhythm. You glance once toward Mr. Measure. His eyes are on his watch. His throat clears at precise intervals. He directs without speaking. You align with his rhythm. Sooty Meg passes again, carrying away dishes, muttering at grease on her sleeve. Teacup Tom polishes a stray glass mid-course, unable to resist. Rat-face Pete, not needed here, appears at the doorway anyway, grinning. No rats at dinner, he whispers, and disappears again. Mini-Arc 8, dessert and decline. The final course arrives, pudding, heavy with suet and spice. You set it gently before the mistress, bow once, retreat 7 steps. The sweet smell fills the air, mingling with lamp oil and faint coal smoke. Glasses are filled one last time. Knives rest upon plates. Voices soften further. Dinner winds down. You clear plates, stacking quietly, balancing porcelain against silver. The table empties. The sideboard fills. The room smells now of extinguished candles, wax cooling into stillness. The myth of spontaneous feast dissolves. The reality is measured steps, polished spoons, whispered serve. You leave no trace of yourself, only gleaming silver and satisfied silence. The lamps dim, the cutlery rests, and the dining room exhales into quiet. Nightwork banking the fires, ghosting the corridors. The family retires upstairs, their footsteps muffled by carpet and routine. The house grows quieter, but it does not sleep. The myth says once lamps were dimmed, servants rested too. The reality, another shift begins, a quieter one, where the house is put to bed. The air cools as doors close above. A faint draft threads itself along the lower hall, carrying the smell of smoke, tallow, and dust. Your feet ache faintly inside stiff shoes, but your steps continue. Mr. Measured checks his watch and clears his throat softly. His signal, the night work must begin. Mini-Arc 1, banking the fires. The myth imagines fires extinguished at night, every grate gone cold. The reality, they are banked, coaxed to smolder until morning. The procedure is steady. Lay small cinders across, bridging the embers like careful scaffolding. Tilt the coal scuttle gently, add a measured layer, never too heavy. Close the vent a fraction, leaving breath enough for ember to survive. Listen for the sigh, the faint exhale of fire adjusting to its new weight. You kneel at the parlor hearth. The glow brightens under your touch, then hides again beneath the new coal. The room smells of ash and faint heat. The fire will live until dawn. Sooty Meg passes with her inevitable coal bucket, muttering, fires eat more in sleep than in waking. She wipes her forehead, smearing another streak across her cheek. She is almost as much soot as girl by this hour. Mini-Arc 2, the myth of still corridors. Stories suggest the house lay silent after dusk, like a painting. The reality, servants glide through corridors like ghosts, lamps in hand, checking locks, turning down covers, carrying last trays. You walk the corridor now, lamp glowing faintly. The flame flickers, its glass chimney warm in your palm. The walls smell of beeswax polish, faint turpentine and fabric that has absorbed years of coal smoke. At the far end, Teacup Tom delivers a tray with hot water for the mistress. The jug clinks faintly, but he steadies it, whispering to himself. No rattle, no spill. He places it on the washstand, bows slightly to no one, and retreats like a stagehand unseen. The corridor does not rest. It exhales, inhales, exhales again. Miniac 3, checking the locks. Ratface Pete appears at the side door, trap under his arm, grinning as always. Rats don't care for locks, he says, but you check them anyway. The myth claims doors were bolted once and forgotten. Reality, each checked twice, sometimes thrice. The procedure repeats. Slide bolt, hear the click, test the knob once, never twice. Tug gently on the chain, glance at the window latch, step back, lamp lifted, eyes narrowed. You move from door to door, lock to lock. The brass is cool under your fingers, the wood smells faintly of damp. Each click is a lullaby, the house closing its eyes. Miniac 4, the beds turn down. Upstairs, beds wait. The myth says sheets folded themselves, covers smoothed by magic. The reality, hands like yours fold corners, lift blankets, shake pillows. You enter the guest room. The air is cold, unused, carrying the faint smell of mothballs. You pull back the coverlet, fold it neatly at the foot. The linen sheets feel cool, stiff with stuff. You plump the pillows with slow pressure, listening to the faint hiss of air leaving them. Teacup Tom follows with a warming pan, brass lid clinking softly. He slides it beneath the sheets, counts to 12, slides it back. Warm toes make warm tempers, he whispers, repeating a rule passed down without humor. You finish, step back. The bed looks untouched, though you know your hands smoothed every crease. Miniac 5, the myth of rest. By now the myth insists you are free. The family sleeps and surely servants must sleep too. Reality, ledgers still written, boots still polished, cloth still folded. Mrs. Pinch appears in the servants' hall, notebook under her arm. Ink stains her fingers, ambition stains her expression. She checks aprons hung to dry, collars laid flat, a pile of gloves waiting to be brushed. She writes one line, laundry satisfactory. She writes another, boots not yet done. A dilemma for you, polish boots now, though your hands ache, or leave them for morning and risk her sharp nose. You choose to polish. The leather smells of tallow and polish paste, sharp and oily. You rub until the surface shines faintly, like calm water under moonlight. Miniac 6, night rules of the house. On the wall of the servants' hall, a list is pinned, faded, ink smudged, but legible. Rules for night service: lamps trimmed, oil checked, wicks cut square, fires banked, no flame left naked, doors locked, bolts tested, beds turned, pillows plumped, warming pans withdrawn, water jugs filled, placed on stand, boots brushed, gloves stretched, cloaks shaken, silence kept after the 10th hour. You read them slowly, the lamp flickering beside you. Each line feels inevitable, like the tick of a clock. Miniac 7, a small inconvenience. In the pantry you hear a faint creak. The myth says night is full of ghosts. The reality, wood warps, hinges complain, mice nibble. Still you pause. Do you wake Mr. Measured, report the sound, or wedge the door quietly and trust it will hold? You choose the wedge. A sliver of wood slides into place. The door sighs shut. The creak ceases. The pantry returns to silence. Ratface Pete later grins, claiming it was his rat leaving the house for good. Miniac 8, lamps dimmed. Near midnight, the final duty, dimming the lamp. You take them one by one, trimming wicks, lowering flames until only embers glow. The smell of oil is sharp, almost bitter. Glass chimneys warm your hands, then cool. The myth says lamps burned endlessly, hallways glowing bright. Reality, oil was rationed, every spoonful counted in ledger. Darkness was economy. You move from room to room, lamp in hand, leaving darkness behind you. The house grows quieter, softer, more like sleep. The family rests above, the servants retreat below. Fires sigh in their grates, lamps dim, doors bolt, beds wait in silence. The myth of rest belongs to the family. The reality of night belongs to you. The flames fade, the corridors darken, and the house exhales into uneasy sleep. Pay, perks and the price of a ribbon. You sit in the servants' hall, where the day's work has quieted for a moment. The table stretches long, its wood scarred with years of knives and ink blots. A single candle flickers, throwing a dull light across plates of bread crusts and a wedge of cheese. The myth says servants were richly rewarded, pockets lined with coin, bellies filled with meat and pudding.
The reality is plainer, modest wages, small perks, and the constant arithmetic of stretching both. The air smells faintly of stale bread, wax smoke and damp wool. The sound of boots drying by the fire punctuates the silence with faint crack. Teacup Tom polishes a spoon even now, as though silver might slip away if not watched. Sooty Meg leans back, coal streak across her cheek, muttering about her wages, as if each word were another smudge. Miniac 1. The myth of fat purse. In truth, wages were thin threads. Housemaids earned only a few pounds a year, paid not weekly but quarterly. Footmen fared better, mostly because they wore livery that spoke of status, not because their purses bulged. You count your own small coin. They clink softly in your palm, warm from your skin. Enough for a ribbon perhaps, or postage for a letter, but not both. Mrs. Pinch enters, ledger in hand. She writes each servant's pay in columns of neat ink. Her pencil smells faintly of cedar as she taps the page. £3 yearly she murmurs for one, 5 for another, plus board and lodging. Her tone is flat, as if reading from scripture. A dilemma arises. You could ask for an advance, claim your boots are worn thin, but advances stain a servant's name, whispered about as weakness. You close your hand around your coins and say nothing. Miniac 2. Perks that meant survival. The myth says perks were luxuries. The reality, they were necessities disguised as gifts. Cast-off clothes, leftover food, tips from guests, each formed part of survival. Sooty Meg wears an apron, clearly once white, now patched with cloth from the mistress's discarded gown. Finest silk I'll ever own, she mutters, tugging at the fraying edge. Teacup Tom holds up a teacup chip, claiming it as his permanent inheritance. He says it with mock pride, though he polishes it anyway. Perks followed rules of their own. Leftover pie may be eaten only after the mistress has retired. Candle stubs belong to the maids. Dripping belongs to the ledger, not to the tub. Cast-off coats go first to footmen, then passed downward. Tips are discreet, accepted with bowed head, written in no ledger. You receive an old pair of gloves today, cracked but serviceable. They smell faintly of lavender water, a ghost of their former life. You stretch them gently, fingers stiff against worn seams. Miniac 3. The tip ritual. A guest departs, pressing a coin into your hand. The myth imagines tips fell like rain. The reality, they arrived rarely, and each demanded a ritual of acceptance. You bow, eyes down, fingers curled just enough to accept without seeming eager. You murmur thanks softly, never louder than the clink of coin. You slip it into your pocket without glancing at its value. Only later, in the servants' hall, do you draw it out, a shilling, bright against the dim candlelight. Teacup Tom peers over, whistling softly. Spend it on a ribbon, he teases. Rat-face Pete, leaning in the doorway, grins. Or a trap. Nothing says wealth like a trap with sharp. He chuckles, disappears into the corridor, boots squeaking faintly. The dilemma returns. Save the shilling toward boots that will last a year, or spend it now on a letter home. Both feel urgent. You place it back in your pocket, undecided. Miniac 4. The myth of endless food. Upstairs the table gleams with roasts and puddings. The myth insists, servants ate the same. The reality, servants ate what was left, and sometimes what was nearly spoiled. Tonight it is pie, crust heavy, filling mostly potato. The smell is warm, though faintly sour at the edges. You eat slowly, grateful, but you notice Sooty Meg pushing aside the darker bits with her spoon. Better than coal dust, she mutters, and eats them anyway. The bread is stale, cheese sharper than before, butter thin on the dip. Yet the warmth of food after long hours feels like abundance. Mrs. Pinch does not sit. She writes in her ledger even here, noting costs, recording waste. She murmurs, 2 pies consumed, 1 jug of beer gone. She eats nothing, or perhaps her food is in. Miniac 5. The price of a ribbon. Later, you visit a small shop on your half-day out. The myth says servants squandered wages on frills. The reality, even a ribbon meant calculation. The ribbon is pale blue, folded neatly, smelling faintly of starch and dust. The shopkeeper says, 3p. You hold the coin in your palm, heavy despite its smallness. A dilemma, spend the coin on ribbon, for Sunday best, or keep it for boots whose soles are thinning. You picture the ribbon in your cap, neat, prop. You picture your boots, water seeping through seams. Teacup Tom would say, a ribbon shows you belong outside these walls, if only for an hour. Sooty Meg would mutter, boots, always boots. Rat-face Pete would grin, spend it on cheese, ribbons don't catch. You hand over the coin, the ribbon is yours. You fold it carefully, tuck it into your pocket. For a moment you feel rich. Miniac 6. Records and realities. Historians still debate exact wages. Records from the time suggest housemaids earned as little as £10 a year, while butlers might see 50. Some scholars believe tips formed a silent second income, never written but always understood. Household accounts, church logs, and personal letters confirm the arithmetic. Survival was a patchwork of wages, perks and patience. Mrs. Pinch's ledger reflects this patchwork. Her ink columns are strict, but between them lies the truth. Boots patched twice, aprons washed thin, gloves stretched a season too long. The ledger records pounds, shillings, pence, but not the size that accompany them. Miniac 7. A quiet calculation. Back in the servants' hall, you lay the ribbon on the table. The candle flickers across its pale surface. Sooty Meg eyes it, snorts. "Threepence for that." Teacup Tom lifts it, inspects the weave, nods in approval. "Worth £1 in dignity," he declares. Rat-face Pete pokes his head in, grins. "If the ribbon catches rats, I'll buy one myself." You tuck it away again, safe. The price feels heavy, but the color feels lighter than coal, lighter than starch, lighter than ink. The myth of fat purses fades. The reality rests in your palm, a ribbon, a coin, a slice of pie, a pair of cracked gloves. Payment is not abundance, but the quiet arithmetic of survival. The candle gutters, the ledger closes, and the servants' hall exhales into silence.
Days off, days on, church, markets, and letters with dictionary creases. The week stretches long, each day measured by bells, ledgers, and Mr. Measured's pocket watch. But even in this clockwork life, a half-day of rest exists. The myth says servants had full freedom on Sundays, strolling as they pleased. The reality, freedom rationed by the mantel clock, timed as carefully as tea. The servants' hall smells of damp wool and coal smoke. Boots line the wall, drying slowly, stiff with polish. The air is heavy, but lighter than on workdays, for today promises a few hours of air beyond the gates. Miniac 1. Preparing for a day out. The myth imagines servants rushing out the moment the family leaves for church. The reality, preparing yourself is a process, careful and deliberate. You wash your face in cold water, the basin smelling faintly of soap and iron. You scrub harder than usual, hoping to rub away the faint smell of starch that clings to your sleeves. Step by step, her pencil scratches like judgment, noting time out, expected return. Change into best clothes, cast-offs perhaps, but pressed and patched. Your coat smells faintly of lavender water, though the seam is frayed. Tie your ribbon neatly, its pale blue brightens the dull light. Avoid coal smuts on the way out. Sooty Meg mutters that smoke leaps onto clothes when it sees them clean. Step into boots that creak faintly, soles patched twice. Teacup Tom admires his polished shoes, grinning. Respectably unnecessary, he says of the ribbon tucked in his pocket, waiting for its turn. Rat-face Pete leans in the doorway, waving a dead rat as if it were a calling card. "My day out's already done," he says cheerfully. Miniac 2. The church myth. The myth says servants flock to church out of piety. The reality, church was attendance as much as devotion, a place to be seen, judged and confirmed respectable. You sit in a pew at the back, the air smelling of damp stone and candle wax. The vicar's voice drones steadily. Words about duty and humility, you let them wash over you, a steady hum like the hiss of irons on linen. The mistress glances back once, noting presence, attendance recorded silently, as binding as Mrs. Pinch's ink. Sooty Meg shifts beside you, coal streak faint even here. Teacup Tom sings softly, his voice flat but earnest. Rat-face Pete, miraculously scrubbed clean, smirks through the sermon, as though rats in pews would be less trouble than parishioners. Miniac 3. Markets and streets. After service, the streets open to you. The myth imagines servants shopping freely, coins spilling, laughter ringing. The reality, threepence here, two there, each coin counted twice before it leaves your palm. The market smells of wet wool, horses, and roasted chestnuts. You pass stalls of ribbons, apples, second-hand books with spines cracked. A dilemma, spend your coin on a letter home or save it for boots. You pause at the stall where paper and envelopes are stacked. The paper smells of starch, the envelopes faintly of gum. You choose the letter, though boots will wait. Teacup Tom buys sugared almonds, holding them like treasure. Luxury measured by ounces, he says solemnly. Sooty Meg buys nothing, muttering about coal dust on clean sleeve. Rat-face Pete boasts of a second-hand coat, grinning at its faint smell of mothballs. Miniac 4. Letters with dictionary creases. Back in the servants' hall you sit with paper before you. The myth says servants wrote fluent, flowing letters. The reality, Many leaned on borrowed dictionaries, folding and unfolding pages, until creases cut across words. You dip pen in ink, scratch across the page. The smell of iron gall rises sharp. You pause often, uncertain of spelling. The dictionary lies nearby, pages creased where common words hide. Dear, faithful, yours, step by step, bet, begin with dear mother, ink blotting faintly. Write of health, of weather, of work softened into polite. Avoid complaint, words travel slowly but sting quickly. Fold carefully, seal with a dab of wax. Set aside, waiting for post. You imagine the letter carried miles, folded and opened again, creases deepening, until paper itself remembers your hand. Mini Arc 5, the myth of leisure. Upstairs the family enjoys leisure, reading, riding, tea. The myth says servants did too in their hours free. The reality, half day off is still part day on. You return at the tick noted in Mrs. Pinch's book, boots dusty, ribbon faintly wilted. She checks her watch, nods curtly, writes your return. Then work resumes. Fires need tending, boots need polishing, cloths need folding. Your half-day shrinks to memory before the clock strikes again. Teacup Tom sighs, as he polishes yet another spoon. Freedom measured in hours, polish measured in spoons. Sooty Meg mutters, Cole doesn't care for clocks. Rat-face Pete grins, rats keep their own calendars. Mini Arc 6, the quiet rhythm of routine. Historians still debate how much freedom servants truly have. Records suggest half-days and Sundays were common, but letters confirm they were brief, bound by expectation. Some scholars believe markets and churches mattered less for goods than for presents, a way to confirm a servant's respectability outside the house. You reflect on this as you fold your coat, brush dust from boots, smooth your ribbon. Even leisure has its rules. Shoes polished, manners intact, punctual return. The myth of freedom fades. The reality of respectability remains. The day closes with letters written, ribbons folded, boots dusty again. The half-day of rest lingers faintly, like lavender water fading from cloth. You return to the rhythm of bells, ledgers, fire. The ink dries, the ribbon rests, and the servants' hall exhales into quiet once more. Scandal, myth, and the house that doesn't blink. The house sits in the evening like a great closed eye. Lamps glow behind curtains, fires hum in their grates, yet the building feels watchful, as if walls themselves record every movement. The myth says scandal lived only upstairs in parlors and drawing rooms, where reputations could unravel with one misplaced word. The reality, scandal, myth, and rumor trickle downstairs too, though softened, disguised, and quietly folded into work. You sit in the servants' hall, bread crust in hand, candle burning low. The flame flickers against the wall, making the shadows stretch like eavesdroppers. Teacup Tom polishes a spoon, always polishing, always humming. Sooty Meg mutters at a coal streak on her apron, rubbing until the cloth frays. Rat-face Pete leans in the doorway, trap under his arm, grin sharper than his tool. Mini Arc 1, the brooch that vanished. The mistress's brooch is missing. The myth says theft must be the cause. Servants pocketing jewels in secret. The reality, most losses were misplacements, hems swallowing objects, pockets forgetting. Mrs. Pinch appears, ledger in hand, her pencil tapped, brooch not seen since morning. Her eyes pass over each of you like iron pressing cloth. She writes nothing else, but the silence thickens. The dilemma: do you speak of the time you noticed the hem of her gown catching oddly, or do you hold your tongue and risk suspicion? You speak softly, suggesting the hem might be heavy. Mrs. Pinch narrows her gaze, then nods once. Sooty Meg later discovers the brooch nestled in the dress's lining, recovered with little fuss. The ledger receives one line, brooch located, nothing more. Scandal dissolves into Mini Arc 2, the dumb waiter ghost. The dumb waiter creaks at midnight, ropes groaning though no one pulls them. The myth, the house is haunted. The reality, wood swells, ropes tighten, the weight of years making mischief. Teacup Tom swears he saw the tray rise without hand. Ghost of spoons past, he whispers. Sooty Meg smacks him with her rag, muttering, ghosts don't polish silver. Rat-face Pete grins, if it's a ghost I'll trap it too. Still, when the dumb waiter rattles again, you pause. The dilemma: do you wake measured, risk his disapproval, or wedge the tray quietly and hope the noise fades? You wedge it, the rope stills, the house sighs, the ghost, if it ever existed, is silenced by wood and wedge. Mini Arc 3, the myth of poisoned gossip. The myth insists gossip among servants was dangerous, each word a spark for dismissal. The reality, gossip was routine, shared in whispers like breadcrumbs, rarely lethal,
often softened into humor. Tonight, Sooty Meg whispers of a guest who fainted from a too tight corset. Teacup Tom counters with a story of a gentleman who tripped on his own cane. Rat-face Pete, not to be outdone, swears he once saw a parlor rat bow before the mistress herself. The stories flow, not sharp but dull and soothing, a rhythm of shared amusement. Even scandal becomes another kind of polish, rubbed into the grain of the day until it shines faintly. Mini Arc 4, the soda that cured everything. Another myth floats down. The mistress insists baking soda cures nearly all ailments. Toothaches, stains, even fainting. The servants laugh quietly. The reality, soda scrubs pans better than it saves lives. Miss Pinch notes in her ledger, 1 box soda purchased. Teacup Tom mutters, soda that smells like ambition. Sooty Meg dips a finger, sniffs, and grimaces. Smells like chores, not cures. Still, when a stain mars the mistress's gown, soda clears it neat. Scandal averted not by whispers, but by powder. Mini Arc 5, the rules of scandal containment. Mr. Measured clears his throat, watch glinting faintly in the lamplight. He recites his version of rules, voice calm as ever. Rules for scandal below stairs. Speak softly. Walls carry word. Confirm before repeating. Never name names when guessing. If asked, know nothing. If pressed, defer to Mrs. Pinch's ledger. Never laugh within 7 steps of family doors. All scandals fade when the fire is banked. The rules sound more like a lullaby than a warning. You nod, absorbing them like a hymn you already know by heart. Mini Arc 6, a false accusation. Later a handkerchief goes missing. Whispers stir. Teacup Tom pales, for he polished spoons nearby when it vanished. Sooty Meg mutters suspicion. Rat-face Pete grins too widely, making himself guilty by humor alone. The dilemma, accuse quietly, or search silently. You choose the latter. Beneath a cushion, the handkerchief appears, fallen unnoticed. You present it without comment. The ledger receives no note. The scandal dissolved. Teacup Tom exhales loudly, then polishes his spoon twice as long. Sooty Meg mutters an apology too low to hear. Rat-face Pete chuckles. Even handkerchiefs run away from work. Mini Arc 7, the house that doesn't blink. You realize, as evening stretches, that the house itself feels watchful. Every creak of stair, every whisper of curtain, every tremble of the bellboard seems like an eye-opening. The myth says servants worked unseen. The reality, the house always noticed. You walk softly down the corridor, lamp in hand. The walls smell faintly of polish and damp. The carpet muffles your steps, but you feel them echoed in wood beneath. The portraits lining the walls gaze silently, their painted eyes reflecting lamplight. You wonder if scandal truly matters, or if the house itself swallows it all, storing it in plaster and wood. Wait, the myth of grand scandal dissolves. The reality is quieter. Misplaced brooches, rattling dumbwaiters, whispered jokes, handkerchiefs found beneath cushions. Scandal downstairs is not thunder, but drizzle, soft, steady, absorbed by the hand. The lamps dim, the ledger closes, and the house exhales into silence. Still watching, still waiting. Winter without drama. Frosted panes, quiet stoves, and the long exhale. The season turns. Frost creeps along the windows, tracing patterns like pale lace. The myth says Victorian houses conquered winter with roaring fires and endless coal. The reality, drafts slid under doors, water jugs froze in bedrooms, and servants worked hardest when the cold pressed heaviest. You wake before dawn, the air sharp enough to sting your nerve. Your breath escapes in a thin cloud, vanishing before it rises. The blanket is coarse, the mattress colder than stone. The fire in the servants' hall has not yet been lit, and the floor beneath your feet feels as though it holds ice within it. Sooty Meg stumbles past with a coal bucket already, muttering, "Cold eats coal faster than mouths eat bread." A streak of black crosses her cheek, frozen into place. Teacup Tom holds a mug between his hands, empty, warming his palms on memory alone. Measured checks his watch, clears his throat and announces, 3 minutes until the first bell. Winter or no, his gospel does not change. Mini Arc 1, frosted panes. The myth says frost was charming, decoration upon glass. The reality, frost was hunger and chill, forming inside as well as out. You wipe your sleeve against the window, leaving a clear patch that fogs again instantly. Upstairs the mistress demands the frost be wiped away each morning. You carry a cloth stiff with starch, pressing it against the glass. The pane feels brittle, colder than metal. Frost melts briefly, then reforms, as if mocking your effort. Step by step, dip cloth in warm water, wring until damp, wipe pane from corner to corner, leaving streaks faint as smoke. Rub with dry cloth, absorb remaining damp. Step back, sigh, watch frost creep again by evening. The pane gleams briefly, then whitens once more. The house exhales indifferent. Mini Arc 2, quiet stoves. The myth imagines roaring stoves, halls filled with warmth. Reality, most rooms remained cold, stoves rationed by coal and ledgers. Fires were banked in only a few chambers, leaving corridors like tunnels of ice. You kneel before the parlor stove, hands stiff, coal dust biting your knuckle. The procedure repeats from memory. Rake embers forward, lay cinders across, tilt scuttle gently, listen for the sigh. The stove glows faintly no more. Sooty Meg mutters, enough to warm a teaspoon. She shovels more coal though her hands tremble. Teacup Tom hovers near, polishing a glass with breath fogging the rim. At least it shines, he says, though his lips are blue. Rat-face Pete bursts in, trap under his arm, cheeks red from outside. Even rats hide in winter, he declares cheerfully, stamping his boot. Snow melts onto the floor, leaving dark patches that Mrs. Pinch will surely record. Mini Arc 3, bed warming. The myth says families slept warm, tucked under endless quilts. The reality, servants warmed beds with brass pans filled with coals, sliding them beneath sheets until the linen You carry the warming pan carefully, brass lid clinking softly. The handle bites your palm with its cold iron. Step by step, rest the pan on the hearthstone, until metal holds heat. Lift by handle, test balance so lid does not chatter. Slide beneath sheet near foot of bed, move in slow ovals, count breaths to 12, move higher, count again, withdraw, listen for sheet's faint sigh. The linen smells faintly of coal, warmth settling into fibers. You fold the blanket back, satisfied. Teacup Tom mutters, warm toes, warm tempers, his favorite proverb. Sooty Meg snorts, until coal runs out. Mini Arc 4 drafts and door sausages. Cold creeps not only through glass but under doors. The myth says heavy drapes stopped drafts entirely. The reality, servants rolled door sausages, cloth tubes stuffed with sawdust to block the chill. You carry one now, its fabric patched, seams rough. You lay it across the threshold, the draft weakens, but still whispers faintly. The sausage smells faintly of damp sawdust, like a forgotten corner of the attic. Mrs. Pinch inspects later, nods once, writes nothing. Approval is silence. Mini Arc 5 cocoa that tastes of patience. On rare nights, cocoa is prepared for the family. The myth says it was rich, thick, flavored with spices. The reality, thin, stretched with milk, tasting faintly of patience more than luxury. You stir it in the kitchen, steam rising faintly, smelling of sweet dust. The spoon scrapes softly against. You ladle it into porcelain cups, carry them upstairs with steady hands. You wonder what will be left for you. Later you sip the cooled remains from the pot. It tastes faintly sweet, faintly bitter, faintly of waiting. Teacup Tom sighs, better than polishing without cocoa. Sooty Meg mutters, coal dust tastes warmer. Rat-face Pete grins, rats prefer beer. Mini Arc 6, the myth of winter conquest. The family believes fires and stoves conquered winter. The myth comforts them. The reality, even with coal blankets and warming pans, the cold seeped in. Servants knew this truth best, their hands red, their boots stiff with ice. Historians still debate how families endured cold houses. Letters mention frozen ink, frost on pillows, boots lined with newspaper. Some scholars believe the rhythm of chores, banking fires, trimming lamps, rolling sausages, was as much survival as comfort. You believe it too, as you rub your stiff fingers together, warming them by the faint glow of a stove barely alight. Mini Arc 7, a gentle dilemma. The coal bin runs low, only one scuttle remains tonight. The mistress may call for her fire at midnight. The master may wake earlier than usual. Which room receives the coal? You hesitate. If you divide it, neither fire will light. If you choose, one room will wake cold. You set aside the scuttle, waiting for Mr. Mezid's decision. He clears his throat once, checks his watch and says, "Mistress before master." His gospel of time extends to heat. You nod, carry the scuttle upstairs. The grate hums faintly, glowing enough. The master's room will be colder, but morning will come, and fires will be lit anew. Mini Arc 8, winter rules of the house. Pinned to the servants' hall wall are rules written in Miss Pinch's careful hand, ink slightly smudged by damp. Winter rules: fires banked, not wasted, coal counted, scuttles weighed, bed pans heated, never scorched, door sausages rolled tight, water jugs filled, lids covered, blankets shaken daily, aired when sun appears. Cocoa stretched, not thickened. The rules feel like winter itself, strict, cold, but steady. The myth of warmth fades. The reality settles. Frost on panes, faint heat in stoves, cocoa thin as patience. Winter does not roar. It lingers, quiet, heavy, conquered only by routine. You lie in your narrow bed, blanket coarse, ribbon folded in your pocket. Frost creeps again across the glass. The fire downstairs sighs in its sleep. The house breathes, and you breathe with it. The panes frost, the stoves hum faintly, and the house exhales into its long winter rest.